compelling stories are not hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Join your host, Dr. Eric Shaw, prosecutor Ryan Frank, writer Adrian Bonenberger, and comedian Ryan Connor as they interview ordinary people about their extraordinary experiences. This is Baggage.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Baggage. And on this episode, we have with us air traffic controller Kasey. We got the whole gang here today, Adrian, Ryan, and Eric, and myself. And Kasey, thank you for being willing to do this episode and be a guest.
Yeah, no problem. And it's former air traffic controller Kasey.
Which is why you're on here, and we'll get into that from the beginning. The guest episode before this was a librarian, and that is the only person that has been on par with difficulty to get somebody to speak into a microphone about their job because they're worried about repercussions. I would say easily over 10,000 air traffic controllers have seen my request for who wants to be on an episode. And overwhelmingly, everyone was like, no one's going to talk to you. No one's ever going to talk to you. Everyone's too scared.
Yeah.
So let's start with that. What's going on with air traffic controllers? Why people would be worried about speaking publicly?
So something someone mentioned to me one time about air traffic control that really stuck with me is it has a high floor and a low ceiling. So what that means is it starts off like your pay starts pretty good. You can make up to 200,000 at a higher level facility. I'd say the average is about 100,000. But your credential, right? It takes maybe a year to earn your rating, your certification. And I would equivalent that to an associate's degree. But it's an associate's degree that's absolutely useless for anything else except air traffic. Like the amount of work it takes to get rated at a facility, like each one I would say is equivalent to an associate's degree. So if you've got rated at 5 different facilities, you basically have 5 associate's degrees, in my opinion.
Massive investment for a specific job.
Yes, so it sort of traps you, right? If I wanted to get another job, I'm going back to college. I have 1 more semester left and I'm about to graduate college. I'm doing some other things. I wanted to get out. It's not for me. The bureaucracy. I liked air traffic in the military. I liked it in contracting, but the FAA, that is a whole another story. There's no need for NATCA, like absolutely no need. I think it costs like $100, $200 a month you got to pay in dues. And like, what am I seeing for it? You're wasting my time. You're arguing over stuff I don't care about. Well, I have to work extra.
How much
now.
do you say a month are your dues?
I can't remember for sure. Maybe like it's close to like 100, maybe a month.
This is the union.
Yeah, to be a part of the union. I wasn't in the union.
You can do that
after that whole. Yeah, nobody does it though. Everybody's too scared to. You have all these people who just talk all this trash about how bad the union is, but no one does anything about it. No one quits. If everyone quit the union, something would happen, but everybody's too scared. And that goes back to air traffic having a high floor and a low ceiling. You get trapped in it. You make $100,000, you get a family, all of a sudden you get a nice house, and you have no other skills that can make you that much money. So what do? That's why you can't get anyone on your podcast.
If you were actively if you were actively an air traffic controller right now, currently employed, your day job's going into a tower and controlling aircraft, and you were to talk to us and say negative things about it, what are some possible repercussions for that?
Air traffic's kind of like a weird job where it's like, so they'll be like, especially at small facilities, some facilities you'll work with 10 people. Like at the whole place, like a little tower, say, has 10 people working there, and everyone knows everything about each other. And then you get the union involved, which there's no union in the military, which makes it so much easier. The union has become like their own like party. You know what I mean? It's like there's controllers, there's the union, and then there's management. And management I can only speak from my perspective. I was in the FAA for 3 years at one facility, so I don't want this to be a generalization, but from my experience, the union makes the management like almost unable to do their job. If the management tries to discipline anyone, or, like you could be in the complete wrong, but then the union steps in. I could give you a perfect example of how the union wastes a lot of time. every year you bid for your schedule, and that's like what your days off are. So you get 2 required days off. If you work those days, that's overtime. You know what I mean? So people working 6/10s, you're not allowed to work 7 days in a row in air traffic. 6/10s is like the max. And then you're required to get a day off, and it has to be one of those of your bidded schedule RDOs.
Is a typical shift 10 hours also?
Because we're so undermanned, like, yeah, at a lot of facilities it is. Not everywhere, but yeah, 10 hours is pretty standard.
Real quick, what's an RDO?
Required day off.
Oh, okay.
My last RDO, I worked in overtime, and then I took leave for 3 days, and then I worked so that's 4 days, and then I worked for 2 more days that weren't my RDOs, and then I worked another day that was my RDO as an overtime, right? And you need to have one RDO in 7 days, but I didn't have one, even though I didn't work 7 days in a row, right? So it's some weird technicality rule. It wasn't like I was being overworked. So no big deal. I'm an adult, like, weird rule. I can accept, I understand actions and consequences. So management basically wanted to just give me a slap on the wrist, just like let it be known, hey, here's just a written warning. No trouble's going to happen from it. You do this. Here's the rule, blah, blah, blah. I was prepared to go sign the paper, get that over with. But then the union gets involved. Oh, well, they can't do that. You're at a facility where you only have 8 people, and the relationship between management and union is so terrible that they need witnesses. So now I'm getting pulled in the office about this technicality that I broke, and 2 NACA members have to be there with 2 management members. So we're calling people back from their breaks to discuss nonsense. Complete waste of time. Complete waste of time. Yeah. And that happens all the time with the union.
That lines up with, I reached out to the union to see if I could find somebody that wanted to be on the podcast, and I have not heard back. So that makes sense.
Can I ask you how the staffing works there? So you're saying you work, the 7 days in a row, but like without your RDO, then management reprimands you, but aren't they the ones who are having you work those days?
No, I took the
you're filling in for somebody or something?
I accepted the overtime because I was on leave for 3 days. It's not like I actually worked 7 days in a row. But
I see. On
paper, I didn't have an RDO within 7 days.
God, that is really technical.
That's nuts.
So that's what the union does with management. They waste time, and at the same time, unions are also controllers, so they're part of our manning. So we're taking 5 people, including me, out of a facility with 8 people to talk 4 hours about why I shouldn't just take this slap on the wrist and not do it again. I'm an adult. I'm not going to do that again. Like, it's a weird rule. Caught me by surprise.
For a job that's already understaffed. Let's talk about that a little bit. So the general impression is that air traffic controllers in general are just overworked and stretched thin doing their job. For those that don't know, what is your job? If you're an air traffic controller, you show up to work. What are you doing every hour? How many breaks, and what is your focus on while you're doing the job?
It depends on your manning for sure and the facility that you're at. Usually management and the union come to some kind of an agreement with like break schedules and whatnot. But like some places you'll work like an hour on, hour off, maybe like 2 hours on. 2 hours is usually the max you work at a time, unless, the union has to argue with management about some nonsense.
Is that just because like that's kind of like the max someone can focus and do this effectively, or is this just kind of standard practice?
In the military, it was more like you would just walk around and ask people if they wanted to break, But the manning was better too in the military. They didn't have this manning problem.
How long did you do this in the military?
For 7 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we should probably start there. Sorry, I got right into it. So let's go.
Let's back up. Let's take things back. We've started in the middle of this story tell us, like, how did you get to become an air traffic controller? How did we get from point A to point B to that we're now complaining about staffing and manning hours and things like that?
So I joined the military. So I didn't want to go to college. I think I graduated college or high school with like a 1.5 GPA or something. Like, just wasn't for me. It just, like, I'm not going to sit in class and just fill in the blanks, watch a video, fill in the blank. Like, I'm not learning nothing from that. I got better stuff to do. I knew I wasn't going to college since freshman year. I ended up going to the military when I was 20 and got air traffic control, scored high on my ASVAB test, and I knew nothing about air traffic control, and that's what they gave me.
What branch did you serve in?
The Air Force.
What kind of duty stations did you have?
My first duty station was a approach radar. It was Nellis. Pretty busy. They have the busiest exercise called Red Flag a couple times a year, where just all countries come and simulate like a big war, and Americans teach them things. After that, I went to England and I worked an approach in England. And I also was fortunate enough to get certified at the tower as well there. And then after that, I separated from the military because myth in the military that, I just can't wait to get out and join the FA. That's just the whole attitude of the military. The FA is going to be so much better. I'm going to make so much money.
Is that the main pipeline from the or to the FAA is from the military, or are there other avenues that people can go?
They hire new hires. The term is off the street hires, I guess, is what we call them in air traffic. That's just no experience. You just, you apply and then you take a test. And then if you do well on the test, you get sent to the school in Oklahoma City. And then if you pass that, they send you to a facility and you start training.
And is that more people are in the military or more people are off the street?
I couldn't tell you. The only facility I worked at in the FA was only had like 10 people at it. So,
can you say where you worked, or is that
in the
confidential?
FA?
Yeah.
I'll tell you all where I worked. So after England, I went to Iraq for about a year and a half and did contract work there. Worked the radar, and then I applied for the FAA. And when you apply for the FAA, they give you a list of 25 places, right? And you rank them 1 through 25. I ended up getting like my last rank, which was the Grand Canyon, one of the slowest towers probably ever. I think all the detention in high school is what best prepared me for that job.
I'd have ranked that number 1.
Yep.
Nice quiet place.
So my air traffic control career has gone from busy, less busy to just in detention in the FA.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have any of those experiences? Anything that stuck out to you as like just stranger than fiction?
When I worked at Nellis, we would work with, we were the middleman between Area 51. They'd call it Dreamland. So we'd have to monitor. There'd be like restricted ranges, right, where like no one could fly in. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, you'd see like a dot, and it'd be going like 600 knots, which is pretty crazy. Like, to see a primary target going 600 knots
at sea level, that is, that's pretty close to the speed of breaking the sound barrier.
You call Dreamland and say, "Hey, do you know about this guy, or do I need to do something?" And they'll just be like, "Nah, we're talking to him. He's fine."
That's cool. Turns out our stuff's not working too well if you see him. But yeah, don't worry about it, right? Like, you're probably not supposed to see them.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Now, with the shortages that have been in the news a lot lately, do you think that's something that can just be fixed by better pay, enticing more people to want to be an air traffic controller, or is there more to it than that?
I think a little bit of pay would definitely entice it, but they don't really use common sense in their hiring processes either. For example, the highest level facilities are centers, right? So there's towers, there's approaches, and then there's centers. Centers are like level 10s and 12s. Towers are usually like 5 to 7s, and approaches are, anywhere in between that.
These are pay grades?
Facilities, like different air traffic facilities.
Maybe you can explain that a little bit. I know a little bit because of aviation. There's a difference between working approach and a difference between working a tower. Can you tell what are some of the responsibilities if you're doing just approach, and what are some of the responsibilities if you're in the tower?
Yeah, and are the approach facilities also at the airport, or are they kind of between airports?
The approach facilities are usually at the airports. The centers are just kind of in random locations, and the towers are obviously right next to the runway.
Mm-hmm.
In the tower, you control about maybe like 5 miles of airspace bubble, roughly. And most of it's just like looking and using your eyes more. But I mean, it's all the same phraseology, just a little different rules. Approach is more like a video game. Like you're looking at a screen. You're in a dark room all day and you see like dots or whatever, the aircraft on the radar, and you just tell them what to do and you hand them off to approach. Centers, they work above. Centers are the ones who set up the approach. So they're the guys like cruising at like 35,000 feet, and they'll start descending them down and getting them into the flow to the approach. And then the approach will set them up on whatever approach, kind of zipper them in. And then tower, they'll transfer them to tower, and then tower will clear them to land and, taxi them off the runway and
Gotcha. So when you're on a flight and then, whatever is 20 some minutes before landing and then it's, tray tables up, seat backs up and all that stuff. And they say, we're about to begin our approach at that moment or roughly soon after that. That's when it gets handed off from control to approach?
Center to approach. Yep. Because
center to approach.
Approach is the one who clears them for the approach, and then tower clears them to land. Center just kind of funnels them all to make it nice and easy for approach to get that done.
So as from the pilot's perspective, as you're going from one airport to another, you're switching channels routinely when you're being handed off from one controller to another for different purposes. And then you're on the ground.
Even a cross-country flight, like you're getting handed off to different centers across it. You know what I mean? Or you might have to go low for a second, talk to approach, and then get back to a center. Like you could be handed off multiple. An approach controls maybe like, I don't know, some have 40 miles of airspace. When I was at Nellis, we had about a 100 mile by 100 mile box of airspace we would control.
What's more intense? The approach video game aspect of it, or the tower where your head's on a swivel looking around? Which one's more stressful, intense, has to take your attention?
It's honestly, it's all relative. Like even at slow facilities, like it can go from 0 to 100 in a second, and you have to be like ready for that. You know what I mean? Like you might be at a small facility that is technically easy to work at, but you're dealing with equipment from 1970. The guy next to you might not be the best controller. So, I mean, there's just all sorts of different challenges. It may be the amount of pilots you're talking to on frequency. It may be, maybe center gave you some bad, like, handoffs to approaches, and you got to make some moves to fix that. They all have their own challenges.
We have an issue. We can't make an entire episode without making a movie reference. So here I go. Is that Eric constantly brings up this movie. Is it called Bringing Out the Dead?
Yeah. Yeah.
The ambulance. It's a terrible movie, but he loves it because he was a paramedic. We're not going to get into it, but
you guys shit on Martin Scorsese.
Oh yes, he makes bad movies sometimes. It's not a good movie. Anyway, have you ever seen the movie Pushing Tin with John Cusack and Billy Bob Thornton?
No,
about air traffic controllers.
I haven't.
How'd you go from A to B there?
Because I feel like an air traffic controller would be like that movie's incredible. It really shows the stress and make it look just like really kind of cool and fun. And I imagine an air traffic controller would look at that like you look at Martin Scorsese's crappy movie. Like, that's good. Like, what do you think about that? Anyway,
do you mind if I ask a question that's on subject? No, usually I'm doing what you just did. Can I ask a pilot relations question here? Did you happen to watch season 2 of The Rehearsal on the HBO? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No idea. Sorry.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Well, season 2 is about it's about an investigation of the cause of crashes, and when the black box transcripts are looked at, you see a lot of of co-pilots who are warning a pilot of something, and then the pilot ignoring them. And so anyway, this is a common thread of, the guy in charge just not trusting his deputy there. And I was wondering if you all ever get a sense of that in talking to planes, like any sort of, just coldness or tension between pilots or anything like that.
Sometimes the pilots will get like, think one of them cut the other one off or something, like different planes.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're speaking of, like the co-pilot thing, that's pretty prominent in like Asian countries.
Mm.
There's like a famous air traffic control thing where in Korea, the co-pilot was just saying, "Hey, we're about to crash. But he was too afraid to say anything because the captain is his captain. You know what I mean? And the level of respect is like, he guess he'd rather crash than come off as disrespectful. I don't think it's quite the same in America as that, but it definitely in some other countries.
Even then, there was an American flight. God, I'm going to get the year wrong and all that, but I want to say in the 90s, where it was a similar thing. Where this pilot, he was the head pilot for the entire airline. He was the chief pilot for the entire airline, and gained, commanded a lot of respect. And none of the co-pilot and the other engineer that was on board did not say anything when he was on the runway. It was a foggy situation, and air traffic control had not cleared him. And in his mind, he's like, "We're good to go. I'm hitting it. We've been waiting forever. They're not answering." He guns it and does not realize another plane's coming in for a landing, and the plane coming in for a landing clipped the top of the one, take it off. And if not everybody, a hell of a lot of casualties for both aircraft from pilot error.
What do time-traveling mathematicians, ancient astronomers, and mad scientists have in common? Well, step into my laboratory at Math Science History, where time bends, ideas spark, equations echo, and the past hums with the electricity of what's to come. Hi, I'm Gabrielle Burchak, your mathematical host and curious conductor of Math Science History. Wind the clock, plug in the coils, and subscribe to Math Science History, where the past lights the way forward, one curious tale at a time.
Has anyone seen the movie Flight?
Yeah, with the Denzel.
Denzel Washington. That's the one where the plane crashes at the beginning and they like invert the plane and everything. So back up a little bit. My wife and I, it's Valentine's Day and we're trying to do just like a nice like parents only thing. And we had like a nice dinner. We're like, "Oh, let's watch this new Denzel movie. This seems exciting and everything." And we sit down, we start to watch it. And turns out the plane crash thing is merely the MacGuffin to start into a movie that's all about just like alcoholism and addiction and this like descent down this like rabbit hole there. And we're like, this is the most awful Valentine's Day movie humanly possible. The opening plane crash is one of the most intense things I've ever seen on film.
Bring in,
if you've never seen it,
talking
it's worth
about
watching.
the alcohol thing, I think that's a huge problem in the FAA as well, because like, so every year in the FAA you have to do a PHA, physical health examination, just to make sure you're healthy or whatever. Like you can't even take, at least when I was in the military, like you could take Advil. Anything else you had to ask your doctor. You couldn't take NyQuil unless the flight doctor approved it. But you could get drunk as you wanted. Air traffic is very not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. Like it's terrible. Like you get home from work and your brain just feels fried. And your shift work, right? You don't work the Monday through Friday. You don't have a set schedule. Like some people are working, they'll start working. Their week will be like they'll do 6 a.m. until 2, and then the next day they'll do 8 to 4, and then the next day they'll do 10 to 6, and then the next day they'll do like noon to 8, and then the next day they'll do like a later shift and kind of get out early. So it kind of like maximizes their breaks to like their time off to a point in theory. I don't think that's good at all.
I've worked in the ER. I understand this. It's awful. It just breaks you down.
Shift work is terrible. Like I would just rather work the same shift every day. And everyone I talk to who's air traffic would be like, "Yeah, I'll just work that shift every time. Like just so I can plan something." And then it gets bad too. Like when I was at the Grand Canyon, we're open 7 to 7, right? So what's a good 10-hour shift 7 to 7? Your whole day is gone. What are you working 7 to 5? That sucks. Or else you start at 10 and then you're working 10 to 8. You can't do nothing with your day. Next closest town is Flagstaff, an hour and a half away. Like, just terrible.
That sounds like a terrible duty station.
We actually had someone die when I was at the Grand Canyon. During COVID, everybody shut down, and he was already kind of an alcoholic, and then he acquired diabetes from being an alcoholic. And then I never seen him the whole time work traffic when I was there for 3 years. And then he passed away. And then it still took another 2 months for him he counted as manning that whole time. So we're one person down. It's like there's absolutely no common sense. Like, we need someone else. This guy, he needed a monitor to work with, like someone who knew how to give insulin shots to work with him. Like, he should not be doing air traffic. And that's a huge difference in the military and the FAA too. In the military, if you fail air traffic, you're done. They assign you a completely different job. You're going to go be a cook or a aircraft maintenance. In the FAA, they just move you to a different spot. I had someone at the Grand Canyon who I worked with who got raided at the Grand Canyon, went to LA Center, failed, went back to the Grand Canyon, and then he got another chance to go back to LA Center again, and then he failed. And then he goes back to the Grand Canyon. I don't know why you get second chances in air traffic control. I don't. Like, it's not, you can either do it or you can't. Like, I don't think it's really something. And then the union too, like, in the military, it used to be able to rip people out of position, say, get the fuck out of here, say whatever to them now, if they were going to break a rule. Because you don't have time. You don't have time to do that. You know what I mean? You could overkey them. You could fix it. Like, you have about 2 seconds to make a move before a disaster happens. In the FAA, they have this whole rule book on how you have to do on-the-spot corrections, how you can't, like, overkey someone, how you have to, like, it's almost like they care more about, like, people's feelings than a disaster happening, you know? It's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like you need that in air traffic. Like, you need to be able to bounce back. Like, because and that's what the military really helps you with. Like, when they kind of like haze you to a point, I don't want to say haze, but like they'll call you an idiot, like, you know, unplug you, tell you get out of position, go downstairs, get away from me. Like, you need that, because if you can't come back from that, like, imagine if you're up there by yourself trying to control and you did something bad and then you can't recover. You know what I mean? Like, that's not someone you want doing air traffic. Like, because everyone makes mistakes, but you want someone who has a short memory and can bounce back from the mistake and has thick skin.
How often would you see somebody that was an air traffic controller that you thought you were concerned about them being responsible for planes?
Do you want to ask this question? I don't want to fly now. This is terrible.
When I was at the Grand Canyon, I was concerned about everybody there. No one understood IFR when I was at the Grand Canyon. They couldn't even tell me what the MVA map was. We were departing people IFR off of a runway that had no IFR departure procedures. It had no DVA, no free vector area. People were just making up departures.
What do these abbreviations all mean there, and how afraid should I be?
IFR is instrument flight rules. And VFR is visual flight rules. So VFR are typically like your Cessna dudes who are just flying around doing whatever they want. They're, you know, you're kind of just more advising them. You don't need separation from them unless you're in like Class Bravo or certain situations. But IFR aircrafts, they need separation. They're like the airliners. You can't like mess around with that. Like, you can't tell them they're IFR when they're not. IFR needs separation the whole time. VFR don't, if that makes sense.
And you had people you were working with that didn't understand that.
No, there's a huge gap between tower and radar. Like, if you only have approach and you only have tower, it's technically the same job. Like, from the outside, from outlookers, when you're in it. When I got my first approach rating, tower and then I got my tower rating, it wasn't like it was easy. It was a whole nother game. You know what I mean? Like it was, yeah, sure. Like I can talk on the mic. I can, I understand what's going on, but like it really put the big picture together for me finally, which you don't get the whole picture if you just only work tower or only work approach. And that's why I can't speak much on center because I've never worked center. I would consider tower and approach like almost two complete different jobs.
One of the pilots was telling me that one of the stories they heard from air traffic control is that, well, English is the international language of air travel. Everyone speaks English, no matter where you go. So this pilot was coming in, I want to say to, it must have been Berlin, flying into a German airport. And he started saying something, German pilot, Lufthansa or something like that, was flying in and started saying something in German. And the German air traffic controller was like, please say everything in English. And the German pilot's like, I'm in a German aircraft flying over German airspace, landing at a German airport, talking to a German controller. Why do I have to speak English? And I guess also in the air was a British flight that chimed in and says, because you lost the bloody war, mate.
You'll hear little things like that, especially on guard frequency. People make little weird noises or, I don't know, just goofy little things sometimes.
I was just going to say we had, during my first combat tour in Afghanistan, we had, there was a Polish contingent near us. It was White Eagle, and they were notorious for doing very systemic kind of like on the hour radio checks. And we sort of fell off on that. We had visual contact with our combat outpost. So if all of the patrols were in, then we would, it's not that we would pencil whip things. We just didn't always need to be on the radio. And so what would happen is sometimes even in ticks, we would be talking with a patrol that was taking contact or with a combat outpost, and White Eagle would step on people and do these radio checks, which ended up being so comical. Also, firstly, because they were doing something completely inappropriate, taking up bandwidth when you had troops in contact, sometimes with, CAS on stations or CAS on station or CCA, but also because they had this whoever their RTO was, had this very deadpan and an insistent voice. So it would be like White Eagle base, radio check over. And our battalion commander, who was a pretty angry guy, hit the roof a couple of times when, he was trying to talk Apaches onto the target. And you got this guy, White Eagle. Anyway, radio protocol is pretty funny.
You have sometimes ground crew maybe is on the radio and doesn't realize they're communicating or they shouldn't be talking. I had that happen in 29 Palms. We're trafficking. We had to taxi across the runway, and we had to contact the tower for permission to cross the runway before we get towed across. Well, I'm ignorant. I never sit up in the pilot seat, but I'm sitting up in the pilot seat while we're getting towed so I can communicate. And I didn't realize when I hit the button, it was broadcasting. I thought it was just internal. I'm like, oh yeah, man, this F and this and this F and that. And I hope we get off F of work. And I'm just like cussing up a storm for 30 seconds or so. And then I hear, who's that on the radio? Can we get a call sign who's on the radio? And I'm like, oh, whoops. Just broadcast.
Did you own up to it, or what'd you do?
No, of course not. No.
No one would care. It's just the fact that you're hogging that frequency for 30 seconds and no one else can talk. You know what I mean? That's the big issue with that. That happens all the time, and it's frustrating, when someone has their mic on ground frequency just keyed up, not saying none. Now you can't talk to anybody because that guy's hogging the frequency. No, you got to keep it short and sweet. I can't tell you how many like VFR, little Cessna 182s will pop up and tell you their whole life story. Hey, I'm just flying here over to Reno today. We're just looking to go see some things. Got just one passenger on board. It's a beautiful day. And it's like, dude, what do you want to do? Like, do you want? I got people to talk to that are IFR and more important than you.
This starts the portion of the podcast where if you're traveling in the near future, you should probably stop. You already know not to fly into the Grand Canyon, but I know from experience in the military, there are a lot more close calls than ever get reported.
When I was at Lakenheath was the only time we had it's kind of a sad story. There was 4 Marines that had just gotten back from deployment. They were stopping at Lakenheath, and they took off together, and we only saw 3 targets on the radar, and we're like, gee, wasn't that a flight of 4? And then something ended up happening mechanically with the 4th guy, and he just went down. And I've seen
This is England?
That was in England, yeah, at Lakenheath. And at the Grand Canyon, I think I seen maybe 2 aircraft go down, but they just were like little Cessnas, and they just set it down in a field and seemed to no injuries or anything.
I want to talk about the DCA crash that happened earlier this year, where a Army Black Hawk helicopter was flying down the Potomac at night near Reagan National Airport and collided with a commercial airliner. I think over 60 people ended up dying. The 4 aircrew on the helicopter, and then everyone on the commercial airliner. And you don't hear from the air traffic controllers about that because they're federal employees. They don't want to talk publicly. So everybody else gets to weigh in on what they think about them and all that. And I take the position that that was absolutely pilot error, not air traffic controller error. Reagan is a very dangerous place to fly around. It's very tightly contained and really high traffic. So what are your thoughts about that crash? Well,
that crash is the stuff of nightmares. That's like an air traffic control nightmare that you have, because that's a play that I've made. I couldn't even tell you. I've made that a million times. You might as well say, like, hey, you see that guy's short final? Yes, I have him in sight. Okay, pass behind. Boom. Literally works every time. I've never not seen it work. So what I think happened was maybe the pilot had like a seizure, a mechanical error. Maybe their night vision thing messed up. But I just don't see how that happens. That's a very common thing to do, like especially a helicopter. Helicopters like can hover, you can just tell them to stop.
Who did they find to be at fault for that?
The Army pilot.
Yeah, I think it was Army pilot
for sure. Because my take on it, there was a really good visual somebody did of like, you need to understand the speeds involved here and what things look like at night. And it was really good about how a little dot comes up real quick. We're talking like within a second. What's that over there? And then boom, it's on top of you. And it's when you're talking about approaching at a perpendicular angle, and really how quickly it all happened was very, very quick.
But this would have been in tower though. Like it's you
sure.
Sure. I in my mind, I don't understand how you don't see. From the video I saw, there was one guy that was just about to turn base, and then there was one guy on final. I don't know how you could confuse the guy on base. And even if you confused that you thought it was this guy, you weren't waiting to pass behind him. You were passing in front of him. You know what I mean? Like,
it is, I think, easily avoidable, even in a high traffic situation. So when it's at night like that in a military aircraft, you might have night vision goggles, but it's also pretty well lit area. Like you kind of don't need it, because what you're dealing with a commercial traffic area, so that everyone has their landing lights on. Everyone has, we call them the smack lights on.
I mean, it's a giant plane. The airport's lit up pretty well. Like the plane, big, lit up. Like, I don't know how you don't see that. Like, every controller I know has made that play multiple times, and it's always worked. I've never seen something like that.
It's not a controller issue. It's not a commercial airline pilot issue. Is that helicopter had the responsibility of maneuvering. It's more maneuverable. You have the time to just dive, bank, do whatever to avoid that collision. I think everybody had their head inside the cockpit. Everybody was looking inside. The pilots were looking at instruments. They were looking at something else. And the aircrew, the support aircrew in the back, I don't think they had their heads outside the aircraft either, because when you have a commercial aircraft with landing lights, it is indescribable how incredibly bright those things are. Because you can see an airplane flying, especially if you're near an airport, you can see that white light. You can see that from tens of miles away, 100 miles away. You can see it forever. It is so incredibly bright. So that I don't think any aircrew had their head pointed to the right side of the aircraft. That's what I think had to happen. for that collision.
It seems so. And then the determination, right, was that they didn't hear the instruction to pass behind, right?
They didn't respond, I guess. There was no response, but they reported it in sight. I mean, if you report it in sight, it's almost like a given to like, I'm not going to hit that guy. Like, you see him? Yes. Okay. Well, whatever you do, at least don't hit him, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that it's not like, oh, wait, did air traffic controller tell him to go behind? Did he hear that message? Did he know? You're beyond that. You're beyond that. You're visual. The pilot had the responsibility of, regardless of what's going on, you know, you're in the approach line of a commercial
crossing
airport.
Final. That's the most dangerous cross you can make. Like, that's and that brings me to another thing. Air traffic is such an easy scapegoat because we are undermanned, right? And people do leave early when it doesn't get busy because they've been working 6-10 hour shifts. And on top of that, most airports, or most facilities, I should say, will have made up positions, you could say. A position that's never open. So it's easy to say, like, you know, oh, this guy was working 3 positions, so he, you know, that added to it. But like, that guy's always working 3 positions because those other 2 don't open because they were created to try to get more manning. The more positions a facility has, the more complex it is, and it goes into the algorithm of how much manning you get. And we're already undermanned, so what can we do? We're just trying things, create new positions that never open, but hopefully we get more manning, you know?
That just seemed to make the whole thing worse. Just how bad it is as far as like understaffing.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. It was that had nothing. There could have been 10 more controllers in the tower, and I don't think anything different would have happened. But it's just it's just an easy scapegoat to just blame the controllers. Oh, they're leaving early. Oh, they're working 10 positions. They're, you know, they should have decombined their positions. Like, no, that's ridiculous.
Speaking of treatment of air traffic controllers, are you still plugged into the community? Do you have any thoughts about the recent shutdown and air traffic controllers? I think the latest was, you know, if you didn't take a day off, you get a $10,000 bonus and all the shenanigans with that. What was the talk within the community during the shutdown?
Oh, that's trash. I absolutely think that's garbage. They do this every year. You can't like not pay us and expect us to not take leave. Every year when this government shutdown happens, because they can't decide on a budget because they have to add 20 different things into the budget, and then no one's going to agree on all of them. You know, they can't just decide on one issue at a time in politics. Apparently, you know, it's like, let's pay our employees and give Ukraine $10 billion. That's the deal. Let's just talk about paying our employees first, and then we can get to the other thing next. It's always some like leverage they're always trying to use to get something else back from.
What a pragmatic and politically apolitical statement. That was great for this show. As we try to avoid right and left stuff. That was just like, it's all being done wrong. Fuck it.
The Manning situation too, right? Like this, like they claim that they're trying to fix Manning. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do that. But so the highest level facilities and supposedly the most difficult to get certified at are centers. The people who get sent to centers, most people are off the street, no prior experience. So you're sending someone who's never even talked to an aircraft to the most difficult position. That means the training is going to be longer, more people are going to fail, and you're going to have worse manning. And you know why that is? So someone who gets hired off the street, if you got hired off the street and say you worked at Denver Center, no prior experience, you get paid $50,000 to $60,000 until you get certified. If you have prior experience and you go to Denver Center, you get paid $120,000 to $140,000.
Wow, prior experience being military usually, right?
Yes, or contract tower, any air traffic certification from the FAA counts as prior experience, right? So I think they're more concerned about saving money than they are about manning, is what that tells me. You know, they're just trying to throw as many things at the wall and just see what sticks for the cheapest.
Yeah, they can say we're increasing manpower by adding these positions, but they're the cheaper positions with inexperienced people.
Yes, exactly. Who are less likely to certify than someone who has any ratings in air traffic. So, I mean, talking on the skills of Mike, like, it's tough. A lot of people could do air traffic, but they can't talk on the mic, so they can't do it. Like, you know what I mean? Their brains just can't, like, process it quick enough to get it out of their mouth, you know? But they know what they do. If you just sit down and ask, what should you do here? They can tell you all the right answers, but, like, they get mic shy. That's, like, a big skill that, like, kind of is overlooked, I think.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good point. You got to be able to multitask. You have to communicate to people what you're visualizing on the radar so it makes sense to them. And you juggle probably a couple aircraft at the same time. It takes a bunch of different skill sets.
And that creates animosity, too, between the controllers, because it's like, before I joined the FAA, I had 4 different certifications, or I think 5 maybe, and I got sent to a level 5 facility. Well, on the flip end, someone who has 0 certifications, they get sent to a level 10 facility, making close to twice what I would make at my facility. Probably more than twice. And way less likely to get certified.
And so what ends up happening is both positions are staffed, but it costs them a lot less money to do it, right?
Yep.
Because they would have to pay you more at a higher. If you went to a center, you would be expensive.
But I would get rated faster.
Right.
The odds are. I'm not saying for sure. I don't want to make any, like, you know, I don't consider myself like the greatest controller ever. I consider myself an average controller, maybe above average at best. I just think air traffic it just came easy to me. I play a lot of video games. I worked a lot of fast food jobs when I was a kid. And I think those 2 skills really helped me, like, with air traffic, especially approach. Approach is just like a video game. Like, and it's, you know what I mean? Like, you copy someone, you do it enough times, you understand why they're doing it. And then you start seeing the same situations and you got the same answers. And it's just, you know what I mean? Just.
If someone was considering being an air traffic controller, what advice would you give them?
Like, to train for it, or to join?
Should they do it?
I love controlling traffic. I would never work for the FAA again, though. I would love to work for the DoD. I should have either stayed in the military as air traffic controller or worked for the DoD, which is basically working at a military base with active duty military, or because they don't have unions.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know, man. Maybe this podcast gets out, millions of people listen to it, and it affects change. I don't want to hold my breath for that. That would be great. But yeah, I think it's people speaking out. I think it's people saying something, because I mean, the way we ended up connecting was on a forum where, again, everybody was like, they were saying the exact same things you're saying. Like, it's trash the way people are air traffic controllers are being treated. We can't say anything. And in fact, I remember on that same forum, someone just came out and said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk to a reporter. Nice knowing you guys. You know, we'll see what happens.
No, the controllers are the ones who are getting the shaft. Management usually becomes management because they don't like to control or are bad at it. You can, even in the FAA, it's possible for someone, and I know this happened, someone at Denver Center washed out of controlling, and later they got hired as a supervisor there. How do you... Air traffic is not a job where if you can't do it, you can't supervise it. Like, I'm not going to listen to you if I know you failed. I'm certified. You tried and you couldn't.
Yeah, that does not make a lot of sense.
The whole common sense thing, it doesn't, there's none in the FAA. Absolutely none.
Unfortunately, it's probably, like things often do, it probably is going to take some kind of catastrophe for anything to kind of change. And let's hope it doesn't come to that. But so far, it does not look hopeful, I think, for air traffic controllers to see any major changes in the future, near future anyway. Well, Kasey, thank you so much. I certainly have learned a lot. I feel like I knew a decent amount about air traffic control from just flying in the military, but I learned a lot from this, and I think certainly the general public will learn a lot from this. Congratulations on making the change and furthering your life and continuing education, and hopefully that's going to be better for you and your family, that choice. And thank you for taking the time to being one of the only people that's willing to talk about this. And it's the whole premise of this show is to give people a voice that otherwise wouldn't. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Ryan Connor, before we go, is there anything you want to plug?
Yeah, live shows. I'm going to be back in. I'm going to be in Roanoke, Virginia, at the Grandin Theater on January 21st. I'm going to be at the venue Jam and Java in Vienna, Virginia, on January 24th. I'm going to be at the Des Moines Funny Bone January 16th and 17th. And I will be on Comics Unleashed on CBS January 8th. That comes on after Colbert.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this episode. If you like the show, rate, review, share it with some friends, and we'll see you guys next time. Music for Baggage provided by Quincy Ledbetter. You can find his stuff at qledbetter.com. Graphics provided by Megan Weaver. You can find her at meganweaverart.com. Special thanks to our premium members for their support. You can become a premium member by clicking subscribe in your Apple Podcast app or by visiting thebaggagepodcast.com/support to sign up or to gift a membership to someone. A percentage of all proceeds go to charity. If you have any questions, comments, or a good story to share, please email us at thebaggagepodcast@gmail.com.
Hey listeners, quick question. Do you know what extraterrestrial radio signals and a mushroom from Texas have in common? Or what a number station is and why it's so haunting and creepy? If you're intrigued by those questions, Midnight Facts for Insomniacs has the answers.
Join us, Duncan and Shane, hosts, comedians, and best friends, on hilarious deep dives into obscure facts from science, history, and pop culture.
So whether you're nocturnal or just a fan of laughing and learning, we'll keep you entertained. Find Midnight Facts for Insomniacs wherever you're listening to this show.